At one point, we were a nation of laws that prosecuted people for such grievous acts. And it really shows where we have become unembarrassed in our sinfulness. Welcome to the Father Leo Show, where I'm dishing out faith, culture, and commentary. And in this episode, we're going to talk about thou shalt not steal and how it's happening and what can we, in a sense, do about it. But before we jump into this crazy story, make sure you like, subscribe, share, and comment, as it helps us to overcome some of the internet's algorithm suppressions in order to kind of keep any Catholic perspective down. So your engagement certainly helps, as well as your willingness to support us on Patreon. Please consider supporting us at patreon.com/The Father Leo Show so you get access to some great content, but also some fantastic perks. So let's just jump right into it in this brevisode and my commentary about stealing. Now, this video came about over 4 years ago, and we know that since then, stealing has become almost like an American pastime. And in light of the tragedies that's been happening as a result of the hurricane, we know that people are taking to looting, basically taking what has been abandoned in order to save their lives. People are just breaking into families' homes and just stealing stuff, even in the midst of these tragic hurricane events. You know, I'm grateful that Governor DeSantis and a few other people in law enforcement said that if you go to an area that is pro-Second Amendment and you break into someone's home, someone may be carrying, and they have a right to protect themselves and their property. But this doesn't happen outside of a family's home. Look, I mean, even Ms. Harris mentioned in one of her soft interviews that she is, it was actually on Oprah, which couldn't get any softer of an interview. She mentioned that she herself carries a gun and that she has a license to do it. And she even said, if someone breaks into my home, I'm going to use it. So I'm not advocating violence. I am raising awareness of the fact that thievery, robbing, looting, stealing is real. What's a proper response to it? Now, I think back to the book Les Miserables by Victor Hugo and how Jean Valjean, the main character, was caught stealing a loaf of bread in order to provide food for his sister's child who was dying of starvation. And this was all during, the real hard times of the French Revolution. And he was put in prison for a very long time. And he was made to feel like just a terrible person because he stole a loaf of bread. And he also eventually would steal candlesticks from a bishop who was offering him hospitality out of compassion. And when he was caught with the candlesticks, the bishop says to him, I gave these to you. Basically to get him off, get the cops off his back. He tells the cops that the bishop gave the candlesticks to this young man, Jean Valjean, in order to help him in his dire situation. But he kind of gives this command to use these candlesticks for good. To use the candlesticks for good. Use what you stole, which eventually became use what the bishop gave to you as a gift. And therefore it's a gift. If it's a gift, it can't be stolen, correct? So the bishop gave him a gift, which Jean Valjean originally stole. And the bishop tells him to use this for good. In my mind, there is no doubt that there are people who steal because they are desperate and in need. There's even a story of a man who tried to rob a convenience store, and he said, I'm sorry, but I need this because I'm desperate, and when I get back on my feet, I will pay you back. I saw this video. I wish I could find it. But instead, in my search, I find this.
A big story at 5, shocking video emerging of a group of thieves stealing thousands of dollars worth of merchandise from a Pleasant Prairie outlet store.
It's all done in plain sight. This video is pretty wild. Casey Cronus is live with a look at this unbelievable robbery.
Yeah, good evening, you guys. Surveillance video from inside the store captures the entire theft on camera. The robbers doing seemingly nothing to hide their identities. Wild surveillance video from inside the North Face store at the Pleasant Prairie Premium Outlets shows what police are calling a mob shoplifting incident.
They were in and out of that store within 30 seconds.
Police say the heist went down like this. Monday night, just before 8 o'clock, 10 men swarmed the store, 9 of them grabbing clothes off the racks, sprinting out, and making off with more than $30,000 worth of merchandise.
That was a story over 4 years ago. 4 years ago. And since then, mob looting has just become, in a way, a national pastime. At one point, we were a nation of laws that prosecuted people for such grievous acts. $30,000 of high-end, outerwear gear. And it really shows where we have just become unembarrassed in our sinfulness. And let's call it what it is. It's not only against the law and hurting people, innocent people, it's also a sin against God and really a sin against yourself. I wish that we can go back to the days where we would be embarrassed and ashamed of our sinfulness. These days, people are touting it and celebrating it. At one point, there used to be signs in stores that said, stealing is against the law. But in one store, they put stealing is embarrassing. It just kind of showed how unformed or deformed you are to have to steal. In other words, when you steal, you have zero dignity. Again, the case of Jean Valjean and Victor Hugo's Les Miserables, the man forgot he had dignity. And that's really what's at loss here, is that we lose our sense of dignity and we're almost embarrassed. Now, let's kind of fast forward, because on social media, there is a great channel that actually calls out thieves, pickpocketers in Italy, in particularly Venice. Check this out. I love this channel.
Attenzione carterista, ladrone, pickpocket, fuori, fuori, ladrone, pickpocket, carterista, ladrone, fuori, fuori Beana, carterista, ladrone, fuori, ladrone, pickpocket, fuori. Cassandra, fuori! Ladre! Fuori!
I love this. I lived in Italy and I was pickpocketed for the first time in my life. My first year in seminary, I was pickpocketed in a train station in Torino. Yes, the very place of the Shroud of Turin, as well as the burial place of Saint Pier Giorgio Frassati. So, crazy. Pickpocketed me, didn't even know it, stole my camera. In that had my documents, including my passport, and it was just offensive. I felt kind of weird for about 3 or 4 days. I didn't feel right, just completely violated. I can't even imagine what it's like for people to lose a lot because of theft. But in this case, I want you to see what happened. This is a group of people called cittadini non distratti, which means non-distracted citizens. And they're a group of Italians in Venice, particularly because Venice is a hotbed for a lot of... Any place that's popular in Italy is going to have thieves, sadly, from Not in St. Peter's necessarily, because they got cops swarming there all the time, but the Colosseum is a big place. The Trevi Fountain, huge distraction area. The Spanish Steps, you know, when you go to Florence, if you go to the Duomo area, any place where there's a lot of distracted people, you're going to get pickpocketers just running around. In this case, they're all starting to dress like tourists, and so you're not going to know who they are. But they firmly believe that if they can steal your money and not get caught, then guess what? They almost earned that keep. And one of the things that you noticed here is that they were shamed. This woman comes out and she screams, ladrone, ladrone, which means these female pickpocketers, ladroni, male or just people, pickpocketers, and they're just calling them out. And you oftentimes see them embarrassed. They'll kind of put a hood over themselves, put an umbrella up, kind of hide behind things because they are embarrassed. In part, they don't want to have their faces shown too much on the internet because they don't want to be caught again, or they don't want to be recognized because they might steal from you. But there is a level of shaming that took place here. You know, I'm not into public shaming people for their sins, but when you are so brazen, like the people in the first story or in the subsequent stories that we're seeing, people are literally just walking in, grabbing stuff and walking out, and no one seems to even want to stop them because they say that it's against the law to stop someone. They think that it would be racist of you. Even if the person was white, you can't stop them. Although it is interesting that I have seen reactions of different races being stopped versus other races that are not being stopped when they walk out of a store, having been obviously stealing from them. It's just terrible. And so one of the things that we have to remember is that stealing is not just against the law. It is embarrassing because it shows that something has robbed you of your dignity. If you are so desperate and in need, can you say, get help? You don't have to turn to stealing. You don't. Only people who are desperate or without dignity steal. And sometimes they're one and the same. So what I think what we've got to do is ask ourselves, in this situation, what would you do? You know, when I got pickpocketed, I wanted to, I don't know, I wanted to get angry, even physically angry, to take whoever stole from me and to, I don't know, do something to make them hurt the way I was hurt. I wish I could have been more like the bishop of Les Miserables and just be generous and say, you know what? They took it because they needed it. That's sorry. That just didn't enter into my mind. I'm not that pious, nor am I virtuous in that regard. But in these cases, how do you respond to them? Well, first and foremost, I think we need to pray for them. Pray for their conversion, that they receive their dignity again, that they realize that they are really robbing themselves of dignity. The second thing that I think can be helpful is just to be more aware. I love this channel because it's citizens who are not distracted. We can't be distracted. If you are an owner of a company that sells things, you know, and you take a look at convenience stores and how they have to kind of protect people, we have to not be distracted because it's very easy for people to steal stuff from us. And at one point, it was, again, just a sign of desperation. I don't think people stole because they hated you as a shop owner. It's just that they needed something for themselves. But in these cases, you know, not only should we be praying for them, and not only should we be prepared for this kind of reality and not be distracted, we almost have to see ourselves as being able to protect ourselves now more than ever, because cops aren't doing anything about it. I got to tell you that these people in both of these videos, they probably have gotten away with a lot. I can tell you that the gypsies in Rome, they get away with a lot. And they're not prosecuted. I mean, they might have their hands slapped, but they're not thrown in jail. In other words, we need to not only protect the law against theft, we have to vote for people who are going to uphold the laws so that crimes like this are going to get punished as a form of a deterrent. Sadly, there are a lot of people who almost want to allow this stuff to happen. I think in California, for example, as long as you don't steal more than $1,000 worth of goods, no one's going to prosecute you. You're going to be okay. You got to take yourself seriously. You know, you got to take this stuff serious, because eventually, those various people who are making these arbitrary and most ridiculous laws might have stuff stolen from them. And I guarantee you they have security guards. They're not distracted. They want to protect their own. And they do that in corrupt ways. So what I wanted to do is at least just talk about these things in light of the fact that looting is sadly occurring, that the theft in America and around the world continues to grow. The fact that we're not even, well, I am. I'd be embarrassed if I got caught. Hopefully I would never get caught because I wouldn't be stealing. But people are making it almost as if it's a career choice, and they are proud of it. It shows how far of a debased culture we have become and how evil has made bad things look good. What do we need to do? Bring back some Catholic guilt and a reminder of the devastation of shame. We need to call people out. We need to protect ourselves. We need not be distracted. And we need to act civilly, which i.e. means vote for people who would be in public positions who would uphold the law. These are my thoughts on stealing. God said, do not steal. It not only harms others and robs them of them, robs innocent people, so to speak. I'm not saying that everyone's innocent who gets stolen from, but robs innocent people for the most part. But more importantly, it robs you of your own dignity. I hope this helps create some discussion for you and your family about what you can do to protect your own goods. But in the meantime, please make sure you like, subscribe, share, and comment. Let me know your thoughts on this topic. Support us on patreon.com/thefatherleo show, and hopefully we will talk again soon. But in the meantime, stay hungry for God.